Okay, so maybe let's kick off with some introductions. So I'm Alexandra. I'm leading sales for Adikteev on the West Coast, and I'm with Margot, our head of marketing. And we have the pleasure today to welcome Lindsay. Lindsay is the head of marketing of Upland. And Lindsay, for people who are not familiar with you and Upland, can you tell us more about your background, career, and what makes Upland unique?
Yeah, of course. First of all, I hope you all slept last night. Thanks so much for coming. It's been really fun to be at MAU for the first time. So Upland is in the blockchain and metaverse space, which, as you know, was huge in 2021, 2022, when Zuckerberg basically anointed the word as like the god of the future and positioning his whole company that way. And this year, it feels like the only thing people ever want to hear about is AI and not the metaverse. So it's been an interesting year to learn what happens through the transition of like a strong bull market to a bear market. So Upland is a property strategy game. So users come in and they actually buy properties that are mapped to the real world. Those properties are actually NFTs, which feels like a 4-letter word at this point. But what they can do with that is they can build value on those properties and then trade them and sell them with others. So we've been able to really sustain a strong value proposition and continue to grow. I'm happy to share some of the reasons why.
So Alexandra, do you want the next one?
Yeah. Actually, Lindsay, a couple of words about you as well. So do you want to...
I hate talking about myself.
Lindsay has a very interesting background between ice skating professional to heading marketing at IMVU. Any highlights that took you to...
I think when you get to a certain point in your career, you feel like everything you've done kind of sets you up for the culmination of the role that you're destined to be in. And I feel like that's where I'm at right now. I was a figure skater and I skated all around the world. And I think that taught me the discipline and tenacity to kind of, aim for a goal and not give up. So my tenure in the companies that I've worked for in my adulthood, I've been there for long periods of time, mostly because, when there's a challenge, that's kind of like my moment to really figure out how to overcome that challenge. So I've worked in some really interesting spaces. I've worked in fashion, which was very interesting and not at all fulfilling. And then I kind of transitioned into more of like the metaverse, basically, like the early forms in the metaverse with InView, which is most people, when I say that, they're like, wait, what? Is that still around? That's like Second Life, right? And it's this 21-year-old company that continued to sustain for a long period of time. And through the pandemic, because everybody was at home, InView is a place where people dress up their avatars and connect with others. And what we found was that it was really curing basically the epidemic of loneliness. And a lot of people were finding friends and finding value in this digital space. And like I was saying, in the pandemic, it like really went crazy. And I loved finding the positive in something that others deemed was so negative and kind of salacious, and bringing out the things that were magical about that. So
Thank you for the background, and let's dive into the core of the topic. So first and foremost, a couple of words about Adikteev. So the market leader when it comes to app retargeting. We help marketers like Lindsay retain, upsell, and activate the new users. So Lindsay, when we discussed about this panel, you mentioned a very interesting call at 5 a.m. from your CEO. Everyone would love to have those calls. And I hope it was before your yoga teaching class. Yes. Because one thing you need to know too about Lindsay is that she teaches every single morning a 6 a.m. class.
Yeah.
So Lindsay, when your CEO called you and asked you, what is going on with your paid marketing channels, like why isn't it producing the ROI that you invested? Like, actually, what do you do? And let's dive into.
There's a little bit of context here, and I hope this is funny. I hope this is relatable for you. That's my goal. I've never worked for founders before. I've always worked with like the second or third CEO. And the founders, because Upland is a startup based in Silicon Valley. And when our co-founder was doing all of the marketing and performance marketing during the bull market, it's like you can't do anything wrong. Like if you put out an ad that just says metaverse or NFT on it, it's like 3-figure ROAS without even trying and even without even looking at Fatui or the entire funnel. So when I come in and I'm like coming in as like at the peak and then the downturn of the bull, it was a little scary because it's like, you know, he's looking at me like, what are you doing wrong? And why did I hire you? And I'm like, I'm doing the best I can. Like, look around, you know? So, I'm getting ready for teaching my Pilates class or whatever. And phone rings 5 a.m. and he's in Dubai. And he's like, so I take a look at the ROAS this morning. What is going on? And I'm like, oh God, like, okay. So, you know, you're going to get those calls when things are challenging. And thankfully, our team is very, very data oriented. And so we're always on top of, you know, what are the decisions that we've made to try to test either a new market or a new channel or a new audience. And, you know, we've learned to kind of work to manage up with the founders to say, like, this is what we anticipate is going to happen because we are consciously making this decision. So for example, if all of a sudden, you know, we're trying to go global, if I'm all of a sudden targeting Android users in Brazil, then probably my ARPU and my ARPU is going to go down, but my volume is going to go up. So if you say, like, we're testing this market, we're looking for opportunities to grow, this is probably what's going to happen, then you can kind of think ahead of, you know, the impact of the decision that you're making. So that way you don't get that call that's like, what is going on, you know? So.
Awesome. Can you actually tell us more about funnel optimization, like what works, what didn't, especially when it comes to retention? Like what are some of the best practices that you've seen?
Yeah. So first of all, we did when we were seeing things start to shift, like a little bit of a downward trend, because we're in blockchain and we're in gaming, and where those two worlds collide is a very small sliver of people and kind of like a Venn diagram. So we started to see that there were gaps in the funnel and we needed to figure out where that was happening. So, you know, what did our App Store conversion look like when users came in and completed registration? How many people were actually taking that next step? And we were looking at all this data through AppsFlyer. So we started to look at the numbers across the entire funnel all the way down to purchase and realized that we were basically dropping users along the way, as you do, which is why the funnel is an upside down triangle. So we realized that, you know, we really needed to shift our messaging and we needed to figure out how to onboard users better. And we understood that our Fatui wasn't focused enough on earning trust from users that are tiptoeing into blockchain for the first time, or basically web3 and crypto. And we needed to educate them. And so earning trust and educating at the top of the funnel is pretty challenging because it's not sexy. It's not saying like, hey, free incentive thing over here, we want to bring you in and show you how to do this. You know, it was pretty challenging. So we had to test a lot of different ways to message users as they completed their registration and started to take the first steps in the actual game.
Yeah, I think I also have a question about retargeting, of course. So how does retargeting fit into your kind of overall strategy for retaining these users? What kinds of audience segments are the most valuable for you guys, et cetera?
Yeah, so when growth becomes more challenging based on the market conditions, we realized that our biggest opportunity and our quickest win was going to be, one, keeping our existing audience, but also trying to find the lapsed users that we lost in, say, like 2021 or 2022, when everybody was super excited about the metaverse. So we worked with Adikteev actually to find users that had paid before and that hadn't paid in like the next 90, 180, 360 days. And the way that we reached them was through their service, but also through like, here's the new things that are happening, here's the incentives to come back. And we found by tracking the open rate that we were actually quite successful in winning some of those users back because we weren't as successful in finding brand new users. The other way we use retargeting tactics is because we were still trying to optimize our FTUX, our first time user experience, we were still A/B testing how to find the best model to drive the highest propensity to purchase. We found that retargeting brand new installs in the last 45 to 60 days on both platforms in different geos around the world was really helpful in getting that second punch of like, again, here's, Upland that you saw in this one ad and you almost registered. Here's another reason to kind of like go a little bit further into this platform. And some of the things that we retargeted them with are easy opportunities to get engaged with the game, easy opportunities to learn how to play and master the game because people love, skill-based activities. And we started to see some really interesting results. And then, obviously made Adikteev happy because we were starting to scale those opportunities and found that we were able to keep stable KPIs. DAUs remained stable. Our MAUs remained stable. And then our revenue started to increase, which was obviously helpful.
Amazing. And so we touched upon the audience, and actually one of the cool offering of Adikteev is that if you don't know which audience you're targeting, if you don't have any insights, we have our own BI team that can look into your organic data stream and look at really in depth on the funnel conversion and provide with best recommendation when it comes to scaling, retargeting and getting this ROI for you. But Lindsay, so we touched upon audience. What about creative? Like any creative best practices that you've seen or that you've experienced? Like anything you wish to share with our audience today?
Yeah. So first of all, when you look at a Web3 company or a crypto company, we have this killer advantage of having a character that people can relate with because it's fun. It's fun looking. So it looks a little bit easier to understand than say something that's kind of dry. So we make it look like there's a lot of fun in the game. There's a lot of things to do. But certainly we go through extensive processes of A/B testing. I brought up AI earlier, and our creative team is actually leveraging an AI company based out of England called Kadam. And what they do is they actually generate, hundreds of assets within a short period of time, which obviously drives efficiency. And one of the ways that we test that creative is just by basically creating MAI campaigns through Meta to see where the click-throughs are going to be stronger on some of those different creatives. And then the ones that have the higher click-through rates, those are the ones that we apply to like a Meta VO campaign or a Google UAC campaign, and even in some of the retargeting campaigns with Adikteev. But the AI aspect of generating a lot of different types of content allows us to see, it doesn't, obviously with hundreds of assets, the creative team is like working all night. Like we don't want to do that. We don't want to like kill our creative team. We want to empower them. And using AI has helped them to move faster and get more types of creative that we wouldn't even think of, to test. And that's been really helpful.
And for those who are not familiar with the main character, it's a llama, right? Any specific reason why you guys picked a llama on the...
No. No. Our co-founders, is anybody familiar with Upland? Have you guys seen the llama? Yeah, the one person. Awesome. That means I'm not doing my job very well.
Let's retarget you guys after the
we'll retarget everybody that went to MAU. So yeah, our game is kind of like Monopoly on steroids, basically. So everything that you buy and trade as a property in Upland is something that you can create a collection and earn value off of. Miles, the llama, is kind of our way of personifying. So it's mapped to the real world. So Miles kind of personifies the culture of the city that we're opening. And I think when people see like Miles that is Brazilian for the day, or Miles that is the king because we opened London around the coronation, it's relatable and it taps into what's happening in the real world so that people can kind of be like, oh, that's hilarious. That's funny. I'm curious about this. I want to learn more.
And that's another thing. I think it's a good segue to like the idea of, okay, we've talked about paid, we've talked about retargeting and all of that, but also the community aspect of organic. Yes. I think that's something that's really important to Web3 apps. So maybe you can talk a little bit about that too.
Yeah. So what to do when you feel like nothing's working. I don't know if anybody else has ever felt that way when you're like trying everything in the, the day 1 or day 7 ROAS from meta campaigns are just not what they used to be. So being in Web3, we had done a lot of research about how different exchanges were successful. So ETH, if you're familiar, how many people are familiar with Ethereum? Okay, cool. So obviously crypto wasn't allowed to be on TikTok or Google or Meta as, advertising content for a long period of time. So they had no choice to go to performance marketing. So what they did was they actually did community/Web3 marketing. That's how they've rebranded it, where they identified hubs of strong community members that they empowered with resources to help and incentivize them to grow and share the message and the opportunity of ETH to others. There's lots of different examples of this. I think it's very similar to vertical marketing in a way. So for us, we have users all around the world, and we started to identify the people that were kind of the power users in various areas. And then we looked deep into which geos, without even trying, are really valuable to us. And so what we've done is identify a community in those geos and really activate them to start, conducting meetups or finding other communities that they can incentivize to try Upland to get educated about how to play the game. And because trust is a huge part of crypto, those in-person meetups are really great opportunities to show people what this is really about, to really connect. And so what our mission is to really make the community almost an extension of the marketing team, where they have the right message, the right tools, the right resources, the right brand to share the brand with others. So there, there's a lot of geographic areas that are very interesting to us. And so we're starting to identify the people that are going to be hosting meetups through the summer to kind of grow the brand that way.
Great. Well, thanks so much. This is really interesting. And to conclude, we're almost at the end of the panel. What would you like to share with your audience in terms? So we talked about, how to optimize your funnel, how to grow your organic community, and you're actually in Vegas too for this other revenue summit. And can you talk to us more about how you build a team to work together and generate revenue?
Yeah, so being in a startup, obviously, I was on a panel yesterday with somebody from NVIDIA who has hundreds of people on the marketing team. I have 10. Through the funnel analysis, everybody had to align on where the gaps in the funnel were. And so what we do is we actually, and I'm sure you guys do this as well, I don't think that this is secret sauce by any stretch, but, we look at the funnel performance daily, weekly, monthly, and kind of live by, we don't get so siloed into the data that we forget other opportunities, but we really understand what's our state of the business at any given moment, and how does each person contribute to, if you're working with Gummy Cube, who is here, which we are, how are we kind of optimizing our app store presence so at least we have a greater opportunity to convert those users to download the app and register. So, that person knows his mission to keep driving people down the funnel to purchase. And, it's not really rocket science, but it's easy to get distracted by a lot of different opportunities and things that people try to sell you on when you come to conferences like this, or, other things in the world that are oh, I should try this. It really comes down to, how is everybody contributing to their part of the funnel? Do you have the right message? Do you have the right creative? Have you tested it? What is the data showing you? Are you contributing to the gap or to the actual monetization of that user? So we really connect a lot to make sure that we're constantly on the radar of how things are going.